Today, we are going to enlighten you on a topic that affects not only us here at Auburn University, but others on a global level seeking to learn one of the most spoken languages in the world. Our focus today is on global TEFL, or how our students learning English abroad. English language learners are those who are seeking to learn the English language. It is differentiated into two categories, ESL and EFL learners. English as a second language, or ESL, is taught in countries where English is the basic language. For an ESL student, the use of English is not only used in the classroom environment but also in social settings. English as a foreign language, or EFL, the students are instructed in a country where the majority of the population do not speak English. EFL students typically utilize the English language in a classroom only.
AU Global, an Auburn University program, aids in the assistance of international students' improvement of their English skills in order to smoothly transition into a university abroad setting. There are several programs like this across the United States that offer these opportunities to better their English language. A big demographic of AU Global are Asian students, just like our demographic highlighted in a survey that was conducted through paper and electronic submissions. We will be discussing various methods in which these students learn English before relocation to an English-speaking country. Most specifically, these students vary from countries such as Saudi Arabia, Japan, South Korea, China, and Indonesia.
Let's listen to some international students share their experiences about learning English in their home countries.
Learning in my home country is not that good, useful, I think, because in Indonesia we do learn since we are like in the primary school, I think, but as we grow up until even high school, we still learn English, but a lot of people, a lot of like the teachers and stuff, or maybe it's just the government that set up the educational for English is they are focusing on the grammar and the vocab and stuff, but not really on the speaking as a language that we're going to use to communicate to other people. So maybe not that much, not that big from learning from my own school. And
All of my English teacher was Japanese. We were mainly focusing on grammar part and reading part.
There is just one English class and normally grammar and reading.
Okay.
I think the school doesn't help me too much in English. I think we need more get involved with other people to practice in activities and everything.
When viewing policies and teaching English within the 5 countries examined, they all had a consensus of introducing English to their students from late elementary school onward. The policies had a tendency to follow the pedagogies of rote memorization and grammar translation method. With these theories of practice, the emphasis of standardized testing was paramount in all countries except for Saudi Arabia, as the others used these tests as a way to either receive financial support or to gain some form of recognition by its government. With the shift in instructional teaching strategies towards a more conversational and usable English approach, organizations such as UNESCO, an organization that focuses on educational advocacy on a global scale, work hard to create awareness of current best practices to enhance learning experiences and outcomes. There are also smaller groups and NGOs across the world that are calling for shifts in educational strategies. The issue that is arising is these countries understand the need, but are having problems implementing these methodologies effectively. A common issue is that of teachers not being highly qualified nor having received professional development to properly instruct students in these more effective methods.
Most countries have privately run English schools that range from testing practice to conversational practice, but due to cost, this is not an option for all EFL students. These institutions supplement the instruction that is lacking in the public or governmental establishments. However, today's focus will not be on this area of TEFL. In the survey that we conducted on Why Do You Want to Learn English, where we surveyed several international students, we asked 6 questions. Which continent are you from? Why do you want to learn English? What is the most difficult part of learning English? What were your obstacles in learning English in your home country? How many years have you spent learning English? And lastly, do you feel like your English education in your home country was helpful? As you can see in our graph, the majority of our survey responders at 79.5% are from Asian countries. This also explains our decision to focus on these 5 countries, Saudi Arabia, Japan, Indonesia, China, and South Korea, for our research and interviews. With this next survey question, we received unexpected results. 51.3% of international student responders said that grammar and writing were the most difficult part of learning English, while 38.5% said that speaking and conversation were the most difficult. A possible explanation for this result is that the majority of students' first foray into English occurs in middle school and high school classes. These classes focus greatly on grammar and writing, so we deduced that our responders meant that learning these basics were more difficult than the more advanced speaking conversational skills emphasized at higher levels. Let's hear from some of our interviewees as they talk about difficulties in their own country in learning English.
When you came over to the States, was it easy? Did you have difficulty using your English?
Actually, I had to study English again from the beginning
Okay, why?
because I need to study about speaking. So I went to some private tutor institution, something, and just to practice speaking English.
One of the most important reasons that I think people don't use English as much is because before we come to America, we're still in China, the English training agencies or the school, they don't teach us how to communicate in English, but instead they teach you how to get good grades in exams like TOEFL, GRE, and then SAT. So speaking English was never the concentration of English learning.
Unless you go into English conversation school, we didn't really have any opportunities. I didn't even see Americans or foreigners outside of school that many. Unless you live in Tokyo or somewhere big city, maybe you have more opportunities. But where I growing up, I didn't really have any opportunities.
Challenges in English, like the grammars and stuff, even though like people usually have grammars and stuff, but in Indonesia we don't really have that, so it's kind of awkward, and it's just hard. Basically it's just hard because grammar is not like a part of our national language or any language that we use in Indonesia, so maybe that's
I'm learning the English, but a little bit in Saudi Arabia because my teachers he's studying the school. If you finish, he talking with the people in the finish the school talking the Arabic.
Okay.
You forgot the layer.
Poor instruction of teachers, such as outdated teaching strategies, bad pronunciation, and teachers with a lower proficiency of the English language, a lack of resources for learning English, and money to finance additional things such as study abroad and private English lessons are all primary obstacles frequently encountered by our survey responders. Country policies and the thought that English is too difficult to learn did not even register as a hindrance for our international students. The majority of our responders spent 11 or more years studying English, with the second largest group studying from 5 to 10 years. They started learning in middle and high school, and some continued onward through university. Few are considered to be beginner learners that had less than 5 years of studying. When asking our last question of whether our responders felt like their English education in their home country was helpful, why or why not, a little over half responded that yes, the way they learned English in their home country was helpful, But they didn't go into great detail as to why this was so, except for a couple stating that the basics of grammar and writing helped them master the level they needed, or allowed them to succeed at an academic level in further English classes. Students who answered no were much more vocal on issues of why their language study was unhelpful. For instance, one student said that informal lessons or university level classes were more helpful than what was taught in middle school and high school. Another stated that it was all grammar, translation, and role-playing dialogues, just for the sake of having some productive activities. Memorized grammar rules and vocabulary occurred, but there was little opportunity to practice them in context or realistic situations.
I started learning the language when I was in the middle school, so for 9 years now. My English improved a lot when I moved to the United States, because the best way to learn the language is to use it every day. But when I was in China as a student, I did not have that option.
English, like my mom and my parents sent me to like an English course or something, so to develop my own English skills and stuff. So, I mean, not only that, but I also learned English from other stuff like video games, or when I went abroad to some other countries that speaks English as their main language.
Well, I think if there are native speaker teacher in actual English class every day, and then we could be more prepared for listening and speaking part. So it'll be much easier for me to come to United States and go into the classroom.
I also traveled many times to improve my language. So I have been in South Africa, to British Edinburgh, to Malaysia. So I can practice the language and learn a lot about it.
In such a globalized world that is commonly connected by the use of English, there is still a need to advocate for those who may not be afforded the same opportunities to receive adequate English language support in their home countries. We have introduced many learning experiences, obstacles, and the difficulties that EFLs had when learning English. But now, we want to share with you our comprehensive shortlist of action to better EFL's experiences abroad.
First, the creation of programs that better equip current non-foreign English teachers to be more qualified in their instruction would be an immense improvement. Examples such as instruction of new teaching strategies, professional development for improved language skills and pronunciation, and motivational encouragement to continue to improve their teaching strategies would be needed. Next is the rethinking of current pedagogies that are popular abroad. For instance, programs focus on drill and kill methods, rote memorization, or translation methods to improve overall test scores, rather than an emphasis on student-focused teaching strategies that could help with realistic conversational experiences. There needs to be an increase of conversation rather than grammar at an earlier age to help teach more useful skills than just passing a test. Cummins' Bix versus CALPS model supports this thinking.
There needs to be a higher influx of foreign English language instructors to aid regular teachers as conversational leaders and resources to improve speaking and conversational skills of students. Governmental money could be utilized to attract FLTs to less well-paying countries like Indonesia, Thailand, and many Western Asian countries, instead of the more highly advertised countries such as Japan, Korea, and China. Lastly, governments could provide more funding to lower socioeconomical families who cannot afford extra resources such as study abroad opportunities and cheaper additional language lessons if wanted. It is difficult to say that these sweeping statements of change will be applicable in every country where global TEFL is present, but we believe that EFLs will have a more equitable learning experience than what is happening now if these modifications occur.